What's up, everybody? Marvel the Cross 316 back with another comic book flashback, and today, folks, we are continuing the Amazing Spider-Man series, volume number 1, and today, folks, we are looking at issue number 105. This issue came out in February of 1972, and today, folks, we see Spider-Man, and it looks like he is going to be going up against a Spider Slayer, a brand new and improved Spider Slayer. Now, we haven't seen Spider-Man fight a Spider Slayer since issue number 57, so it's been quite some time. And he's also fought the Spider Slayer not only once, but twice. And so, will Spider-Man meet his match here in this issue? That's what we got to worry about. Also, we'll be seeing the return of Harry Osborn in this issue. And we just have a lot going on. We also see the return of someone else. I won't reveal that person just quite yet, but you're in for a surprise, folks, as we continue to look at this series. Today's title is The Spider Slayer, and this issue is brought to you by Stan Lee, who wrote this issue. It was drawn by Gil Kane, the inking by Frank Giacosa, and the artwork by Artie Simek. And so we see that Peter Parker has returned back to New York. Last issue, we saw that he was in the Savage Land helping Kazar fight Gog, that man monster who unfortunately died last issue, as well as we saw him fight Kraven the Hunter. And we do think that Kraven may have died, but we're not too sure. But we're not going to worry about that today. We're not going to worry about whether Kraven is alive or not. What we're going to worry about today is we're going to be looking at how Spider-Man is going to be tackling this Spider Slayer, and is he even going to be able to become out the victor here? That's the big question here. And so let's go ahead and see what Spider-Man is up to. He's swinging across town. He notices that there is a protest going on in the streets. We see that it's being led by Randy Robertson, the son of Joe Robertson, and they're basically saying that the Bugle is unfair to minority groups. And we see that Joe Robertson's going to show up and he's going to confront his son. He says, "Look, son, you could have just came up to me. I'm the city editor. If you don't like what's being printed in the paper, you could have at least come and told me about it." He said, "Well, listen, don't get into trouble, but do what you believe that you're doing and just keep at it." And we see that Spider-Man's like, boy, after they made Joe Robertson, they threw away the mold. And so we see that Joe Robertson is going to go back inside the Daily Bugle, and in comes none other than the grumpy J. Jonah Jameson. He's in his car, and he's going to get in a big fight with this one guy named Josh. And they start talking and bickering at each other. And he says, "No one tells me how to run my paper. No one. The Bugle's been fighting for civil rights since you were born. But I got civil rights too, and nobody's messing around with them. Nobody." And then he shoves him out of his way. And they're like, "Okay, tackle the honky." But all of a sudden, we see Spider-Man swings down. He's going to stop it from getting worse. He comes and picks up Jameson, like Jameson wants to be with Spider-Man right now. And he says, "You probably steamed him up down there." And Spider-Man's like, "I didn't have to. You're a one-man hate campaign. But if you think you can use me for knuckle practice." He said, "No, no, stop." And Spider-Man then hangs him on the corner of this ledge here. And the police are going to have to come and rescue him. And everybody down below is laughing at Jameson. So Jameson gets furious here. And this is what's going to cause Jameson to contact Professor Smythe, the one that was responsible for creating that Spider Slayer from the past. So we see that Peter's going to rush and make it back to his apartment, because we see that Aunt May is throwing this big party. She's making the cake here because we're going to see the return of Harry. He's coming back from the hospital after overdosing on pills. And so we see here that we got Mary Jane, we got Gwen Stacy, but we also see the return of, yes, this is Flash Thompson. Flash Thompson is back for fighting in the Vietnam War, and he's back for good. And so maybe bygones will be bygones here. we see MJ is still flirting with Peter, and Peter's like, "Look, MJ, I'm with Gwen." But we see finally a very disgruntled Harry Osborn makes it back, and he's without words. He's just very humbled here with the reception that's welcomed him back here as he makes his recovery. Meanwhile, we see that Jameson is going to sneak into this secret lab here where Professor Smythe is at. And he's like, "All right, where is it? Where's the robot that you built?" He said, "Look behind you." He said, "You blew it, Smythe. I paid you for a robot." He said, "And that's what you're getting. But this time, we won't fail, as we did twice in the past. This time, I didn't repeat my previous errors." And he said, "Last time, the robot was built in a human shape. Now, it's built like a spider. And see what it can do. It could shoot its own webs. And just foolproof. We're going to beat Spider-Man in his own game." And so we see that Professor Smythe gives Jameson a remote control, and he's the one that's going to be able to control this Spider Slayer. So we see that after the party, Peter puts on his costume again, and he's swinging through town, and he has no idea that the Spider Slayer is following him. So it must have the ability to basically dents Spider-Man's spider sense. His spider sense doesn't work with this robot. And so Jameson, throughout this issue, notices that there's something odd going on here. He's in control of the robot, but it's almost as if the robot has a mind of its own as well. And this robot is doing things that he's not controlling, and he thinks that Professor Smythe has screwed things up once again. He's like, "I'm going to kill him." And we see here that Spider-Man he notices that there's these gadgets on the rooftops here. And that'll play into the story just in a few moments here. We see that finally the robot slams right into Spider-Man. He's like, "What? Jameson's image is in this robot. It's the Spider Slayer." And Jameson's like, "I have you now, Spider-Man." And he said, "Look what I can do." And he can cut the web. He has a web cutter here. He can cut Spider-Man's web strand. And so it's like this robot is leading Spider-Man to a particular area. And Spider-Man tries his best to attack, but this robot is specially built. And all Spider-Man is able to do is bruise his knuckles. This robot is faster, keener than ever before. And Spider-Man may have just met his match here. And we see that Jameson is loving every bit of this, as this Spider Slayer is just defeating Spider-Man in every turn. And we see, this Spider Slayer, again, is doing things that Jameson does not know. But he's like, I've won, I've beaten him at last." And he says, "Us fearless good guys never lose." He said, "I don't know why the robot shoved him into that building. I didn't steer it that way, but who cares? As long as Spider-Man's beaten, he's getting up again, but I'll fix that." And he said, "Okay, Rustpot, first I'll plug up your web shooter, like so. And now for the benefit of a certain cigar-chewing hyena." And Spider-Man rides the robot like a hyena, but we see that there's someone else controlling the Spider Slayer, and that is Professor Smythe. He didn't tell Jameson that he also has control of the Spider Slayer. And he pushes a button here, and it causes Spider-Man to fall off of the Spider Slayer, and he's unconscious for a bit. But there's something else that Professor Smythe did not tell Jameson, and he was trying to steal this gadget here, because that will help him with his future plans. And so we see that the robot steals that gadget here, whatever it is, and he makes off with it without Spider-Man. And Jameson gets furious. He smashes the control, and he says, "Sooner or later, we're going to crush him. I got to go talk to Professor Smythe about this." But meanwhile, Professor Smythe and his robot returns to him with that scientific gadget here. And now he has control over all of the video scanners throughout the city. And he's the one that is responsible for creating these video scanners so it can pick up any surveillance on the rooftops. And we see that Professor Smythe has access to Spider-Man and seeing where he goes. And sooner or later, yes, he is going to unmask. And so now Professor Smythe has seen Spider-Man unmasked for the first time. He's the second villain, except for the Green Goblin, to now have the knowledge of Spider-Man's identity, folks. But he doesn't know who this is, though. He's never met Peter Parker. But now everything is falling into place for Professor Smythe's plan. And so what is going to happen up next, folks? What is going to happen? Is Spider-Man going to lose the battle here with Professor Smythe and his Spider Slayer, or is the police going to apprehend Spider-Man and find out the true identity of Spider-Man? That's what we have to worry about. So we'll worry about that in the next issue, in number 106. But I want to know what y'all think. Comment down below what you think. Subscribe if you have not. Go ahead and like this video, and I will see y'all in the next one.